So obviously the Hollow Prayer Challenge.
Yeah.
I know they're focusing on the Brothers Karamazov, which is, they say one of the greatest novels written. So for someone who isn't familiar with it, can you tell me a little bit about the novel?
The Lenten challenge is focusing on the Brothers Karamazov, which is one of Dostoevsky's books. Actually, it's his final one. It's his final book. And it's really the story of three brothers and the loss of a life and trying to figure out who's really responsible here. And so it visits a number of topics that we're familiar with, and you can really see biblical themes in it, like suffering and redemption and guilt and confession. But one of the major themes that we're really focusing on is this relationship between active love, active love, which is the God kind of love, and a love that is more convenient, more expedient. It's the kind of love that people are looking for. It's fleeting. It's something about the way you feel, and you do openly. I love openly so that people will get a look at my true heart versus the tough active love, which is usually when it's quiet and no one's around, no one's watching, and oftentimes it's very, very difficult. So we see the juxtaposition of those two types of loves in these three brothers, the brothers Karamazov. So, yeah, that's Dostoevsky's final book. And what we're doing with a number of the guests that we have is we're not asking them to give us a synopsis of the book, but we are asking them to take a look specifically at what we'd call this, active love versus an expedient love, and that's the easy love versus the difficult love.
Yeah, so obviously this is being done during Lent. So Lent is a time of fasting and prayer and almsgiving. So how does the book reflect those themes? Like how does it, correlate with Lent?
Well, Lent is really it's 40 days. 40 is big, big number in the Bible. It's a time of testing, like the 40 years in the wilderness for Israel. Jesus in the wilderness for 40 days being tested by the enemy. 40 has always been a number in the Bible for testing. And so the church takes that and gives us a season of our life where we're tested, where we search our hearts. What are we made of? What are we struggling with? What has an attachment to us, our addictions and so forth. And during those 40 days, we really take a look at our heart, not just in isolation, but as we relate to family members, friends, people at work, our neighbors, and God begins a work on our heart. And what do we need to do to become more like Jesus? And so every year we get this opportunity, and it's more than giving up something. Like I'm going to give up coffee or something like that. It's looking at the good that God has given us and saying, you know what, I'm putting that down right now because there's something greater for me, and that is found only in the relationship with Jesus, something that we can gain as a result of walking with the Lord. But so often the things of this world, the shiny things, the things that are beautiful, tasty, make me wise, these things get in the way of the work that God is trying to do in our hearts. So we're using Brothers Karamazov to sort of like a stage in which we can see ourselves, and we're asking some pretty well-known people about that theme in their life, which is unusual for them because they're used to being asked what's it like to be you, and now we're asking questions about what is God doing with you as well.
Yeah. Yeah, can you tell me a little bit about the interviews that you'll be doing with some of the well-known Catholic celebrities?
Yeah, well, first of all, when we talk about a Catholic celebrity, I think that it's important for people to understand that the people that I'm interviewing are just like you and just like me. Literally, they struggle with the same things. They have the same aspirations, same insecurities, anxieties about life that any of us have. They just happen to be in front of a lot of people. And sometimes that's harder. Sometimes that's lonelier. Sometimes that's more of a challenge. And so, in being able to interview some of these people, we're getting into their lives and their hearts and discussing the same topics that we're dealing with too. So it's a different perspective. It isn't a a higher perspective or anything. It's just a different perspective that is interesting because of what they do, in the same way that a nuclear scientist would be interesting to talk to about how God is showing them the universe and where they fit into it. So we have a Gwen Stefani, wonderful time with Gwen Stefani, and talking about her Catholic roots and what's happening in her life today, and the hunger for God that she has. And she has an amazing hunger. And I have to say this, she's one of the most humble people and one of the sweetest people I have ever met. And so people are going to be surprised, I think, to hear and to see in her the heart of Jesus. We also have Lauren Daigle. She's an award-winning singer who she started off in the Christian realm, and then her message was so powerful, and there was something about her message that went over into mainstream, which is actually what all of us are supposed to be doing. Is that whether you are a jeweler, whether you are a banker or a teacher, you're an engineer, whatever it might be, a scientist, hopefully what you're doing will spill over into the world as a witness. And Lauren Daigle has done a tremendous job with that. And we're going to be talking to her at the choir room in Nashville. That's going to be a big deal. So we're excited about that. Michael Iskander, he's become such a brother to me, a younger brother, I might add. He's from Egypt, and he plays David on the House of David, and we have become very good friends. And the things that he talks about that he learned by the life of David, really incredible, especially due to his age. We're going to Jerusalem. We're going to interview Cardinal Pizzaballa, and of course, he is in the midst of everything that's going on in the Middle East, and God has put him there for a reason. During the whole Gaza situation, I don't know if you knew about it, but I landed on the day that broke out, October
Oh,
7th of 23. I was going over to Israel with a team to do some work, some video work. I landed. The rest of my team was in New York, and I had to wait in a bomb shelter for 2 days and get out of there. We're going to talk to him about that because he made a bold move at one point, and he said to Hamas, "If you will let the hostages go, you can take me."
hmm hmm
And that didn't happen, but that shows his heart. So we're gonna get into that. I think that's going to be a wonderful, wonderful opportunity to meet a man of God who's right in the midst of kind of all the craziness out there. We're going to talk to Patricia Heaton. Everyone loves Raymond. She has a really strong relationship with the Lord. She is strong, and we're going to take a look at what God has been doing in her life as well. So those are just some of the people that we're going to be talking to. It's going to be a wonderful time, and I think people are going to see people that they are familiar with in a new light.
Yeah. Wow, that's incredible about Cardinal Pizzaballa. That'll be an amazing interview to hear. Um, the prayer challenge is also looking at themes of conversion and return and like the prodigal
Mhm.
son and coming home. How is Lent a time for conversion and return?
Yeah, well, that's a good question, because this theme of return, the return is is really not looked at a whole lot. I mean, most of the time we just talk about giving up something, but the greatest thing that you can give up is yourself. Not just coffee, not just wine, not just dessert, sugar, whatever, but you give up yourself. And a lot of people find in their life a common thread with the prodigal son, and that was that you have one son who, the younger son, he wants his inheritance. He goes off to a foreign country. He spends his money on wild living. The other son stays home and does what he's always been doing. When the young son comes back, the father delights in him, sees him at a distance, and he starts running after him. They kill the fatted calf. They have a wonderful party, and the younger son is restored. Here's two things. Restoration during Lent is a goal that you see yourself. Where are you at? Are you that older son who stayed home but misunderstood your father's generosity, that remember when the older son says, "Hey, I've been here this whole time. You didn't do all this for me." And he says, "Son, this was all yours. And
Mhm.
so both of the sons had a misunderstanding about their father's love. One ran away, the other one stayed there, but they both didn't understand it. And the younger son came back. Now he's enjoying his father's love, and the older son has work to do in his heart as well. So you may find yourself as the younger son or the older son during Lent, but the whole idea is to come back to the Father, and this is a journey. Lent is a journey, and Saint John Paul II, the great, my favorite, he said that all of life is a pilgrimage to our Father's house, and so that's the theme, and we're going to be focusing on that all throughout, identifying where are you at in this whole idea of the return.
Yeah. My favorite too, John Paul II, the best.
Yeah.
Um, so another theme that I feel like people are always talking about, or at least more recently, is how we live in such a distracted world and there's like so
Mhm.
much noise and people are trying to find, more stillness or quiet. Um, so how can Lent be a time of stillness and lead people to maybe, grow in their prayer life and amid this distracted society that we live in?
Yeah. Well, you bring up a topic that is so true. I think all of us have to struggle with noise,
Mhm.
busyness. And, I just got back from Israel yesterday. And while we were in Israel, one of the themes that we looked at was the geography of Israel. And the geography of Israel, if you were to place a typical watch over Jerusalem, with the center of the watch on Jerusalem, from about 8 in the morning to 2 in the afternoon, right around there. Everything northwest is noisy, rainy at times. It's predictable, big cities. It's good. But everything on the right stage is dry, desert, unpredictable, small towns, difficult. And so when God told Abraham to go to the land flowing with milk and honey, it's really two lifestyles.
Mhm.
Honey, very, very predictable and good. The milk of the herders in the southeast, very, very difficult. But here's what we find, that everybody wants to live on left stage. Predictable, easy, loud, big cities. Who doesn't want it? Fertile. But oftentimes we are driven to the quiet place, and that's where the monks settled, the hermits settled, was in the desert, in the mountains, in the caves to seek God. And so Lent can become an opportunity to go from the busy, predictable, loud, that part of life, and come away to the quiet place where you can hear God. And I think that Lent is built into our calendar. It's genius, really, because it forces us to go to right stage, to that dry place at times, to really search our hearts. And we need it. And, like Elijah, he heard the voice of the Lord, not in the wind, not in the fire, not in the earthquake and all that, but in a still, small voice. And what we hope to provide for people in this Lenten journey is to join people like Chris Pratt and Jonathan Rumi, Mark Wahlberg, Father Mike Schmitz, and myself, to come away and say, let's seek the Lord here. Let's turn the noise down for a little bit and find out what God has for us during this season of our life. Last year was phenomenal. I mean, phenomenal all over the country with the number of people that were coming back to the church. But we can't rest on yesterday's laurels. Today's a new day. This is a new year, and God wants to do something fresh with us.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Going back to the book for a little bit, Lent obviously leads us towards Easter and the resurrection. Where do you see seeds of resurrection or hope or transformation in or like throughout the Brothers Karamazov?
I think that well, that's a really good question. There's probably a lot of layers to that. Dostoevsky did not write Dr. Seuss books. Most of the time, people, if they can't get through it, they will use the book as a doorstop because it's that thick. I mean, they are all big. The Russian novelists, Pushkin, Dostoevsky, they are amazing writers. And all throughout there, I think you're going to see resurrection coming up in particularly repentance and a realization of good coming out of suffering, and a realization of the fact that love transcends the difficulties that they've experienced. Once they understand what has happened in their own heart, their own culpability, the brothers, there is, I think, a resurrection in their conclusion.
What do you hope people will take away from not only the book, but the prayer challenge as a whole?
I think that Hallow, their goal really is to draw people into a more intimate relationship with Jesus that will result in a real healthy prayer life. In using this as a stage on which to develop that is really brilliant. Alex Jones, the CEO and founder, one of the three founders of Hallow, he's looking at this from a different perspective. It's different than you would normally see when approaching Lent. So I think that people are going to find it a challenge, a challenge that's going to open up the scriptures. It's going to open up life in a way that they've never had before. I think that the goal is to really become much closer to Jesus, and the way you do that is your prayer life. And so we're going to be balancing what you find in your heart with prayer, bringing them together, and hopefully you're going to mature and grow, and you're going to realize things about yourself that the Lord wants to deal with in a way that will bring glory to Him, and it'll change your life. That's really what the goal of anything that we're doing is that Jesus would be glorified. We'd come to know the Father through Jesus, and once we put this into practice, our life changes, and then consequently, the world can change. So, what happens in those 40 days in this challenge, hopefully, will spread throughout the whole world because of what happens to us in it. I think that's the goal that the team is looking at.
Yeah, no, that's really well said. And I guess just to add a little bit more, taking the challenge out of it, what do you hope people take just away? Like, what do you hope people experience in during Lent, just in general, just for anybody?
Yeah. Well, if you look at 40 days in scripture, in salvation history, it's always a trial. It's always a trial. And I think that the trial gives you an opportunity to discover who you are. So we're calling it a challenge, but I would call it also 40 days becomes a temple in time, a temple in time where you can get away, wrestle with God, if you will, go inward and discover what God is doing in your life, and you'll come out of it. You'll come out of it different. Every year, I do. I look forward to Lent every year, and I know some people would look at us as Catholics and say, "How can you look at something that you have to give up, every single year?" But here's the key: is that in Matthew chapter 6, Jesus he introduces piety, fasting, almsgiving, prayer. These aren't just for the fun of it. These are weapons. These are ways of overcoming the three things that Adam and Eve dealt with, and that is they looked at the fruit in the garden, and Eve said, "It's good for the taste. It's beautiful, and it makes one wise." And in First John, at the end of the Bible, John mentions these three things and says, these things are not of God, but of the world. And the goal is to be obedient to God. And so we look at these three things: that which is beautiful, that which is tasty, and that which makes us wise. These are the three things that get us into trouble as we are seeking happiness. And the three forms of piety, fasting, is wonderful for the lust of the flesh, the lust of the flesh, and we have also prayer, which deals with the pride of life, and the lust of the eyes, almsgiving. We divest ourselves of that which is attaching itself to us, that we are caught up in going to the mall and fooling around on the internet and buying this and buying that. It's a time where we're going to become free in these areas, and we're going to transcend the good, because there's nothing wrong with beautiful, tasty, and makes you wise. Nothing wrong with that at all. But if you stop there, that's called idolatry. And we don't want to stop at the creation. We want to go to the creator, and then everything in moderation. So we're looking at those three things also. And then asking ourselves, uh, do these things have a real grip on my life? That all happens. I'm giving you a long description of what happens in 40 days.
No, I love it. Thank you so much. And those were all my questions for you, Jeff. So thank you so much for taking the
Yeah,
time to speak with me today. I really appreciate it.
anytime. It's good talking to you.